Well, hey everybody. It's been way too long, but I am Kari the Mortician, and we're back with 6 Feet Under Exhumed.
I'm Faith, that mortuary professor. It's been, I guess we've kind of taken the summer off, which is
Woo!
good for
We've
us,
got
but
kids and life is
yeah,
life
it's
and
never enough time off though, is it? It's always like as soon as you get a day off, something comes up. So,
and today we've got Eddie the Eddie who may be boisterous, and it's just gonna be what it is, guys. We're gonna go with it because I've gotten so many emails like, when are you guys starting
yeah.
season 3? And I'm like, well, we probably should get it rolling. So we're here. We're gonna do
So,
this.
so we're doing season 3 today. Episode 1, the title is Perfect Circles. This aired originally in 2003, according to the internet. So it's 20 plus years ago.
That's bananas.
I know, and it's I want to talk about this when we get to this point, but the episode opens up and if you remember from the end of last season, Nate was going in for surgery on his AVM in his brain, needed repair on it, and so he's in surgery. It's kind of pretty much a carryover from right from the last episode of season 2
Right.
right into, so it's the same scene, the same thing. He goes into surgery and he starts having, I guess, flashbacks, flash forwards, all kinds of different scenes in his life.
Yes.
And then we hear, some machine noise from the operating room, and his name comes up on the screen, and our deceased person is Nate Fisher.
Yep, they
And
do
so,
this nice huge recap, which
yep.
it's good. I love the recaps because sometimes
Yeah.
it pulls out things that you didn't see before.
Yeah.
And the name of the episode is Perfect Circles,
Yeah.
which I love because it really does bring everything around in full circle in a lot of ways.
Sure. So Nate Fisher, our main character, has died in surgery, and is continuing to have these different interactions. He's with his dad, wherever his dad's spirit is, and he's not very happy to be there. And he's kind of arguing with his dad, and then he starts to see scenes that haven't happened yet, or people saying things kind of out of context in different ways. So it's pretty interesting. But what I wanted to say was, we talk about shows like Game of Thrones is kind of the main one. There's another one that's talked about a lot for this, but killing off the main character so early in a series. Well, guess what? 6 Feet Under did it before them.
Yeah.
So well, it wasn't Ned Stark. It was, I guess it was season 1 of Game of Thrones, but the main character, Nate Fisher, who the show revolves around, was killed off as the first episode in the 3rd series. So we think for a few minutes. And then we realize that he was somehow resuscitated, I guess, and the
Yeah.
death date goes away.
Yeah, he's clinically dead.
Yeah.
And they're working to bring him back because he has died. And he does, he sees all of these moments. And I
Mhm.
think I want to talk through a few of them. I think the one, I don't know, some of them hit me different. Some of them were, if he's died, what happens? And some of them were almost like alternate realities. Like if he
Right.
made it through with brain
Yeah.
trauma or
Yeah.
whatever. But this first one
Or
we
he had
see is,
lived a totally different life.
you see his name and you see the date, and then they go to Rico standing in the preparation room,
Mhm.
not wanting to like look at the table. And you feel that feeling. And I don't know if you've ever really cared for, someone, a lot of embalmers, you have that moment where you are going to go take care of someone you love. Like I've taken care of my grandparents, my niece, lots of friends, lots of people. And that moment is powerful.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you in a way that and not to say that it's ever just a job. I think every good embalmer retains some kind of understanding that somebody's person, but it really brings that back to you that it is somebody's person because it's your person, and how that feels to you differently than it does for all these other people maybe that you take care of that you don't personally know. So it reminds you that this is a really important and heavy job. And not that I don't want to say it's good when we have to work on people we know because it makes us reminded of that fact, but I kind of think that, not that I want our loved ones to die in funeral service, so we have that moment, but I think it's important for us to remember that. And sometimes that's the way we have to remember it.
When I think in that moment too, at least for me, that's my let go moment, is because I have to kind of let them go in that moment in
Yeah.
order to take care of them.
Yep.
So it's like saying goodbye to who they are, what that physical form was to me, because it's
Mhm.
now going to become something different. Because
Yeah.
that body does change a lot when you embalm and when you move forward. And so, um,
I think for me, when I work on someone I know, Eddie, it's Eddie the dog. He just wants to be on the show, I guess. Bring him on, just hold him. I think for me, I recently worked on a not an immediate family member, but a relative of a family member of mine on the side she was married into. And the stakes were they just felt a lot higher. Not that anybody I work on, I don't want to do the best job that I can. I always do. But knowing this was someone that I had met before, in life, and that their parents, their mom and dad were people I've met several times, and their uncle was married to my sister-in-law, and the whole thing, it was kind of like, it just brought it back. Oh my God, this really matters because I know these people who are going to view this person, and this is their child. Whereas, and again, like I was saying, I don't know if you heard, Kari, I think we know the importance of that no matter who it
yes.
is. But when it's someone you have to prepare and then have their family who you are also either related to or know
Mhm.
personally, there's it like the stakes feel so much higher because you want to do the best job you've ever done in your life on those cases.
For
And most of the
yourself
time I think
and
we do
them.
because of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
When it's like you want to go into breakdown mode, but you can't. So
Yeah.
it's like you go in this downward swing and then you have to go up. Like you
You
can't
have to.
let yourself get to where you need to feeling emotions and things, which is why I always say we have to go through grief way differently, because after everything's said and done, when most people are getting into like working through emotions, that's when it comes to us is 6 months down the road, and it comes like
Absolutely.
a walloping semi truck because you never felt through what you need to
Never. I
go
think
through.
I've told this story and I'll just tell it briefly again, but I think I told it in season one. My dad died in November. I didn't cry until Father's Day because I went to buy him a card. He's been dead for months. I went, I'm over at Target, or King Supers. I don't remember what store it was, but I'm over there and I say, oh, Father's Day cards, go down the aisle, start reading them. I'm like, where am I going to
Um,
send it? Like I had literally not even begun the process of grieving for my dad because I literally went from he died to then you're back to work and it's somebody else's dad, now this mom, now this person's, and you don't get that time really to handle it yourself as if you would if you weren't in the business. And it took until Father's Day for me to even
wow.
really cry because I was so mindlessly just going to buy him a card. He had been dead since November.
Because
So
you disconnected
absolutely,
so much
totally,
from it. Yeah, so
totally.
I felt the actor who plays Rico, I just felt it. So
Totally.
like
And it wasn't a big, he
wanted
was,
to be like,
yeah,
yes,
that's
yeah.
exactly it. They did a great job of showing how that feels to not only family, but it is their family, but people that are in death care, make no mistake, it still hits us when it's our own people, just like it does anyone else. It may
It's
take
so
longer,
different.
like Kari said, but we are not desensitized to it in the way you might think we are, not a bit.
No.
Um, but so, one of the scenes that really, I don't know why it bothered me. I have no real personal connection to this, but seeing David try to teach Nate how to speak again,
Yes,
like it
when
made me cry.
it was
And
like
I
an
don't,
alternate life and
yeah, like
it,
he had survived the surgery, but
ah,
maybe his brain clearly wasn't working properly or needed to relearn a lot of things. And there's these two grown adult brothers trying to teach them how to say cat or duck. And you could tell David was frustrated, but he didn't want to show it. And you could tell Nate
yeah.
was frustrated, but he couldn't show it because he's kind of trapped in his body in a way. And it just kind of, seeing Nate standing in the door watching that, it almost made me, I don't know if it was intending to imply this, but I was almost like, God, I wonder if he feels that being dead is better than that outcome.
And I feel like maybe that's, like, oh, this reality is probably not where I want to land. It's not like he's
Yeah.
going to choose, but he's in that bar in that one scene with his dad and like, hey, this is where we're at and we're here. And so it's kind of popping between some different, do I want to spend my ever after with my dad on a bar? Do I want to have lived through this, but have been completely
Incapacitated.
altered
Yeah.
and, hindered by that? I love the brother connection that they show through all of it, but they show mom and mom being like, that was powerful too. Like you felt the loss. I feel like in this opening of this episode was so emotional and it just
I
felt.
like it because usually, so far in this show, there's been a lot of different kinds of deaths and situations. Um, But I liked that they took the time to show what that might look like when a person, and he's not even, I don't think he's 40 yet at this point in the show, in their late 30s dies, that has a pregnant, wife, that has brothers and sisters, that has living parents. We've seen elderly people die, we've seen babies die on the show, we've seen all kinds of crazy situations, but just a midlife person with all of those relationships, we don't think about that as often, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that happens, a 42-year-old mom dies of cancer. There's children, there's mothers, you know what I mean? When a person that has both children and parents die, that there's all, oops, excuse my microphone, there's all sides of grieving, and it's not, and they don't show a lot of that. I don't think we get a lot of that seen necessarily in media.
Yeah. Well, kind of the trickle out of everybody that's affected and how it kind of affects and
Yeah, there's someone with a job. There's a workplace family affected. It's not a retired,
church
not,
family, everybody.
yeah. I mean, not to say that retired people don't have full community, is not in any way, but it's a different
It's
age
different.
range that we don't often see portrayed in media as what happens when someone of that age dies. It's usually someone very young or someone older.
When one of the realities is him in a casket and he's been embalmed
Yeah.
and he's been prepared and he's pissed
Yeah.
because he did not want that. And he had conveyed it very strongly to David, and David prepared him. And he's like, what did you do to me? And kind of goes through this whole little scene. And then Brenda was
Yeah.
standing there with a baby, right? Am I remembering this correct? I watched
Yeah.
this a couple weeks ago.
Lisa was there and Brenda was there. I don't Yeah, I mean, it was just a strange. Weren't they all like wearing sunglasses at one? It was just a strange like scene. It was just a strange scene with random people from your
Yeah.
life, and but
When there's moment, I mean, he like lays on the ground and he's playing with the baby, and then it's like everything goes full circle as the name of the thing. Because later in this episode, a lot of what happens,
yeah,
he is in these moments, kind of like those deja. I don't know if you ever
deja
have.
vu. Yeah,
I have them a lot
yes,
where I've dreamt about something, and then all of a sudden I'm in a moment and I'm like, shit, this has happened.
yeah.
Like, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what that
So a
is.
lot of the
But
things that people say to him in these different realities, or that I guess hallucin. I don't know. He's clinically dead at this point, but as we say, he is resuscitated and comes back. But these things that he hears, then as the episode goes on, he hears those same things in different
yes,
contexts. So like his dad is talking about the end piece of when they're eating dinner, he's like, oh, it's got maple syrup on it and it's this and this. Do you want the end piece? And then later Nate flashes back to like a Thanksgiving and remembers it as so it's
yeah.
just it's kind of like your brain does weird things maybe when you're in that space too, right? But he does end up being resuscitated, so his name's on the screen, and then the death date goes away, and you see he's still alive. Um,
And they fast forward
and they fast forward, and now we're just back. And I don't recall how long it's been since the
7 months.
surgery. 7 months, thank you.
Yeah,
So we're 7 months
because
now.
Lisa's had the baby
That's right.
and
Yep. So
um
Lisa's had the baby.
yeah. They're
Uh,
they fast forward, come back at a barbecue. So
yeah.
he's back to like just living this life. And you come to find out that him and Lisa are married. They got married and are at this barbecue with the baby. And she's all, talking about how wonderful life is. And I feel like she talks about breastfeeding. Just like
She
normal
does. She talks
new
about like
mom
her
stuff.
normal stuff. Yeah. And they're with some adult friends that I don't know that we've seen before, but you get the sense, at least I did, that this is Nate is really being nice and cheerful and behaving and all these things, but for some reason I got the sense, at least the first time watching it and again the second, that this is not the life he wants.
It's not
He's
Nate.
pretending. It's
Yep.
not Nate. It's
He's
not.
playing a
Maybe, and he's
part.
chosen this life. He's chosen this by marrying her and, doing all these things, but you can tell that this is not who he really is.
No.
And so you even just in that first episode get kind of these little seeds of this is not gonna last or not gonna, this isn't exactly what he wants. And so
And then we go
yeah,
over to Dave and Keith. So we kind
mhm,
of check in with everybody to
mhm.
catch up and see where they're at 7 months down the road. Because when we left Dave and Keith, they were in a crazy place. Keith had all this stuff happen and had beat a guy up and got kicked off the force kind of thing. And so they're in
They had to step
counseling
with
and
his
trying
sister
to
and her
walk
daughter. Yeah.
through. Yeah, it's an ugly spot that they're in. Oh, we got
So
our.
they're living together. Just show him. He wants to be
No,
seen.
he's just squeaking his toy. He's laying, he's happy. So just look past the squeaking, everybody.
Okay. Well,
This is
everybody
life.
else. And so, they're living together now as they were at the end of the last season. Um, Keith is still struggling with things, in his job and personal life with his sister and parents and all of that. But they are now going to couples counseling, and their dynamic has not changed. They are very defensive with one another. They're a little bit even combative, I would say. They turn little things into major things. So they're basically a married couple.
Yeah.
And right, I mean,
Yeah, they're working on
um,
communication because communication
yeah,
isn't great. And Keith is snappy and Dave is snappy and overworked. And you don't hear me and you don't hear me and you don't understand what it's like. And,
yeah.
and if we haven't said that at one point, I think in some relationship we've been in.
Any relationship this is, I mean, what have they been together? 2 years, not even, I guess, at most. Any
Yeah.
relationship that gets past that like honeymoon phase, that's what it is. So I
Yeah.
make the joke that they're just a regular old married couple now, and they're at this time in the world it wasn't legal to be married, a man to a man, but they're very much that's what they are.
Yeah.
And they're just having those normal relationship issues. So we're seeing that. We were seeing it with Brenda and Nate before, and now we're seeing it in another manifestation
Well,
through
it's like
David and
when
Keith.
the heat fizzles a bit, and then what is there after
Mhm.
that? And what are you building on? And
Yeah.
how do you communicate when it's not all about the he likes to talk a lot. He
I
sits
love
full
it.
conversations.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
Does he just go "Rah, rah, rah, rah," like that? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
it's ridiculous how much, but it is kind of funny. Do you
he
want
has
to
some.
say hi? Do you want to come up here?
Yeah, but any relationship gets there, and they're just there now, and it's
Will they make it? Will
it's
they or no?
nothing new. Yeah.
We'll figure it out
Will
and
they or
see
won't
if they
they?
make it. And then we got Claire, who
Yeah,
graduated high school at the end of the last season, and she
she
had signed up for
did. She's
art
at.
school, and off she had
Yeah.
gone to art school to find herself, and seems to be just,
She's still in LA though. I mean, she's still living at home. She's just at the and in college now in an art program, not high school. And um she's still kind of just disillusioned with everything. And I don't know. I wonder if people are like that now, or if that was just what we were like in the early 2000s, late 90s. I don't know, maybe both. I think it's getting to that age. I think it's that age that you realize, oh, it kind of sucks to be an adult. I've just wanted to be an adult. Now I am, and this isn't better. This is just
yeah.
dumb in another way, right? So she's pretty much there.
It's funny. I have to throw this in here. So I was looking for songs the other day to like download. I was like, I need some
Yeah.
new songs. So I started looking up the most popular songs by like years and going through the
Hmm.
90s into 2000. Look up the top 20 songs of all those years in the last, 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. It is like Mariah Carey and Whitney and grunge and this very emotive. It is so, like heavy and
Yeah.
oh, and pain. And it's like, is that what it was really like back then? And I tell Josh that and he goes, well, yeah, but I was over there listening to like rock and I was listening to like all the heavy rock. And I was like, yeah, but look at the hair dudes. I was like, they were all super emotive. Like, yeah, that was earlier 90s, like 80s and stuff. I'm like, but that they had their years. I'm like,
Yeah.
they to me
Well,
were
we
like,
had Michael Bolton with his
oh my gosh, yes,
stuff, and
all of it. And it was so feely.
it
Oh,
was.
oh.
You're
And
right. It
it
totally was.
was crazy looking through it. And I was like, wow, that was weird. That was a weird time that we were feeling
Yeah.
through Green Day and all of it. And so, but anyway, I just had to throw that in because that's what
That's
Claire
funny.
reminds me of. That's her attitude, like all the
Yeah.
time.
Total. Well, she's a product of that generation, I mean, like I've said before, she and I, if she were a real person, we're the exact same age. And like
Yeah,
I was in college,
crazy.
at that time, and it was that way. And I remember but I do think everybody, when they get at that to that age, is when they start to realize, okay, I'm free and independent now. And it still sucks. Like you gotta have money. You gotta have, people are
Yep.
still crappy. Like it's not this like bright, beautiful world that you could do whatever you want, be whoever you want. Like you gotta have time, you gotta have money, you gotta like you still have all these
You need
problems.
everything. Well, and I think she's
Yeah.
feeling a little let down because she's like, oh, I'm at art school now and I don't get to just do art and just be free and do whatever. Like I'm in class and I have to learn this stuff. And I think she's a bit disappointed in the beginning.
Yeah, for
But
sure. Yeah. And her friends aren't, are somewhere else, and
yeah, and she
that's
starts talking
fine.
to the one guy, and I think she doesn't realize he might be interested in her a little bit. And
He
so
thinks he's gay,
yeah,
I
and so
think.
she's just telling him everything and she's
Uh,
does a crematory run for Nate and Dave. And so she meets the crematory guy who we met previously when he was kind of a butthole when that young cancer gentleman died and Nate dropped him off and wanted to push
Yeah.
the button and stuff. And so she ends up starting to sleep with him and
He lives there or what? Like he's just a stoner that lives in
no,
a warehouse that is a crematory? Because this doesn't
I'm
seem very
thinking there's an
compliant.
OSHA something
Yeah.
going on
Listen,
here.
if you roll up to a crematory and somebody's got a whole like house set up in there, that's probably
Mhm.
non-compliant. I wouldn't do business with them. So that's not real. I have never in my life gone to a crematory where like it's also where somebody is crashing and they're having band practice. Well, like
Or,
that's not
like yeah, the band is practicing next to the
no.
cremator and there's yeah, that's just weird. Just
Yeah,
weird.
I've never seen that.
But
But
so,
this guy, he's emotive, I guess, right? He's sensitive and has tattoos and all these
oh,
things, but
bad
he's just kind
boy.
of
She likes
yeah,
the
but he's
bad
also just like
boy.
a stoner and a loser, I feel like. Now I'm a mom, so I see it differently, right? The first time I was like, oh, he's cute. Now I'm like, get away from that
No.
loser.
But
He
I
is
mean,
never
look
good.
at Gabe and who she was
Yeah.
attracted to. It's the exact same dude, just a little
Well,
different.
I think this guy is more kind-hearted and I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he's kind of a loser.
Yeah.
I don't know. I shouldn't say that, but that's the vibe because now I'm a mom, and if my daughter was like, "Yeah, I'm sleeping with the guy at the crematory and he lives in the crematory and he doesn't have and that's just his job and he doesn't go to school and I'd be like, "Ma'am, no." You know?
You're like,
Like
let's go meet some new people. Thanks.
let's go to like, a place where someone, I mean, I guess he's employed, but I just sound so old.
He has hobbies, there are some positives, but
He
yeah,
does, yeah. But
it's
are they
not
going to make
gonna
him any
go
money? You can't make a
anywhere.
living on doing that. I'm
No.
just turned into a mom now about him.
And next
Uh,
episode, we'll find out more about him.
for
And
sure, for
yeah,
sure. Dave auditions for, well, Ruth. So there's Ruth and Lisa, which are interacting now, and they're very similar.
they're both very needy, but also very dominant in a
Yes,
quiet underlying way.
yes. And they dress similar, and Lisa's really what I would call crunchy.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know what that means? If that,
Yes,
I
like
don't
granola.
Like granola, yeah. So she's like a crunchy mom or granola. She's very concerned with things being natural, and I don't say that
And she's
to
vegan,
mock
I
her, but that's
think,
yeah, vegan. Like
and
she's
just,
very into those things.
yeah.
And Ruth, I wouldn't say is that. I don't think Ruth is, but Ruth is still very controlling in her own way and wants children, thinks certain things are right for kids and other things. It's the daughter mother-in-law thing. Um, Neurotic, I guess, both of them. And I forget what they snipe about, but they're at Lisa's, where she's living, where she's working now for this celebrity person who's played by
Moira
Catherine
Rose. It's
O'Hara.
Moira
I
Rose.
know, and I knew she was in there, but I forgot. I don't know why, but
I
I
love
love
her.
her, and she's just wonderful. So we get Catherine O'Hara, as Lisa's boss, and she's very demanding and very emotional. She's just like a weird Hollywood. She's exactly what you'd expect from like
Yeah.
a weird Hollywood boss. That's her. She doesn't seem to like Nate very much, because he keeps parking in her spot. Um, but Ruth and Lisa have some disagreement about something about the baby. I don't recall if it's something very benign, but it just kind of begins to show that, it's just starting to show all these little, oh, we have a new baby and
Quirks.
you're married and all these things, but there's all these little things that,
Yes.
it's just dynamics that are there.
Yeah, so they start talking when I don't know if this is what they got in a spat about, but she's talking about, oh, Maya sleeps in the family bed, and we are those kind of people, and we do all these things. And the way she says things is condescending, but not exactly. So
It's
it's
condescending enough, but you could also have deniability.
yes, it's like she's imparting what she believes is the truth
Yep.
and putting you down at the same time, but you
But if
don't.
you say it, she can say, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way." It's yeah.
Yeah. So and I think Ruth does the same thing.
Exactly. So I think they see each other, right? So they can have these like interactions that other people don't maybe pick up on because they're both the same
They're the
way of.
same person in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. The whole time I'm watching, I'm like, ooh, Faith hates you. She hates you.
I do not like Lisa. I don't like it, the I don't like the character. I like her more this time around than I did the first time around, but because I'm older and a mom and all that now. But she's probably my least. I don't know if I like her or Brenda least, but probably I like them equally bad. I don't think either of them is
Is anyone good enough for Nate? Come on.
sure, but it's not those two. Those aren't the only options. I don't know if Nate knows this, but he's not limited to those two. Um,
Oh my gosh.
but apparently we've been in this TV show. So, I don't know. I mean, a lot of families parent their children in all different ways, and I don't think anything's right or wrong. Whatever works for you, and upholds your values as long as it's not harmful to anybody else. What's the big deal? But you can tell that they both very much have different ideas of what's best. Um, and again, that's probably generational. I don't know a lot of people Ruth's age that were co-sleeping. I don't know, maybe, and if they were, maybe it was just simply because they didn't have space, not because they felt that it was correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a person now in your 60s and you were a mom, in the 80s, I don't know, what was the norm then? I feel like at least
We didn't even have car seats back then, like,
yeah,
kind of
I feel
thing.
like that kind of like trope goes around that like parents of the 70s and 80s didn't give a shit and everything nobody cared. I don't know if that's true, but
No.
I also don't know any that were just living like a mainstream life that were doing all that. I think they were breastfeeding. That's always been a thing always, but like the co-sleeping and my baby has to do these things, this way. I don't know, I guess is what I'm saying, but I don't often hear that was the way it is.
I feel like I remember her saying she will let us know when about something to her. Like I feel like Ruth said something like, well, is that really, maybe you should, and I feel like it was the bad thing, like maybe you should move around or whatever. And she's like, oh, well, she's gonna let us know when it's time for that or something. It was a very, I don't want to say weird. just because it's not my opinion of what is correct.
No, I know what you're saying. It
You
was a, it
know,
was a, it was a not a common thing and maybe even at that time, I think that kind of stuff was maybe more in certain areas and not more widespread. I don't know. I know when became a mom in 2015, there's very much two opposing schools of thought on that. Everything had to
hey,
be,
give it up to
like the crunchy mom way, or you were just an old school abusive parent. It felt like, was your only options. And I think there's definitely value of some things from both sides of that, but you can tell that they feel very differently. And I think the idea was Lisa was like, "Oh, well, we're just letting her lead her way." And Ruth is like, "No, you're the parent."
like,
You know,
let's do it, girl. Yeah.
I never liked co-sleeping. I think, my daughter was a terrible sleeper. Maybe it would have been better for us, but I just like my own space. And so I'm just like, oh God, the thought of having a baby in my bed or a child in my bed, no. But that's me.
Well, and they ended where they're all kind of laying on the floor having this like moment as a
Yeah.
family. And it had been what he had remembered, what
Yes.
he had in his
So Lisa said something
death
that was
moment.
exactly what she had said in his during the time that he was having
He was
these
just like,
visions. Yeah.
it was kind of like when he kind of realized, huh, there was maybe thoughts I was having at some point and there's happening, and it was kind of full circle. So that's the name of this
Yeah.
episode, was so perfect and on.
It was. And it was also because Claire had to learn how to draw a perfect circle in
Yes.
her class, and she was like, this is stupid, da, 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 da. But it's, again, if we can just tie it to mortuary science education for a minute. I know Eddie's going crazy. We'll be done in a second, but there's a lot of things, there's a lot of very basic things you have to learn to be able to put together to see the big picture.
Yep.
And so she has to learn how to draw a circle so she can learn how to do other things. And he, had all these little things happen, but it's all, just a
Bigger
bigger,
picture.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then David auditions for the Gay Men's Chorus, which, if anybody forgot, Michael C. Hall, has a pretty good Broadway career. He is a performer. I don't particularly love his style of singing. I'm a snob about that as a musical theater major myself for a short period of time. Um, but he's that's cool that they wrote that into. I don't know if they wrote that into the character because of him or not, but we get a gay choir in there, which is always good. So they're
A gay choir is always good.
always, I mean, it's always fun and they sing funny stuff and there's always drama and it's just,
I love it.
I'm gonna say. But that's episode 1 of season 3, and
With
we will be
all of the Eddie input. So look
all of
past the
Eddie.
Eddie, guys. You can leave all the bad comments about him. That's
Who would
fine.
leave bad comments about a dog? Go, if you're gonna leave a bad comment
He's-
about the dog, go away. We don't want you on our channel, on
I
this
mean, it's
show.
like if I had a little toddler running around, because that's essentially what he is, and wanted
That's
to
worse than a dog, though.
all
I can
up on
see
you.
that.
You know what I
Oh,
mean? It is what it is. Well, we'll record in a better place next time without the Ed.
hey,
Usually it's not just me and him, and usually he's not a dude right now like he is. So
he's in adolescence.
he
So
really is. I'm not looking forward to teenage years if this is what it is. He starts his really official training for therapy dog on Monday though. So we're gonna get into it, and
he's got to learn to stop talking and start listening if he's gonna be a therapist.
oh, and he is a talker. Like I
Mm.
recorded the other morning because his favorite is at like 5 a.m. when the alarm goes off. He crawls up in bed and we have to have like full body, like,
Oh.
oh, snuggle, and he talks to you. And so you say, "How are you, Eddie?" And he goes, "I'm fine." It sounds like
Oh my
Dory's
God.
the whale, talking like the whale in Finding Nemo. That's exactly what it reminds me of. And he does. We will talk for like minutes that way, and he only answers when you ask him something. Like it is a conversation, and I'm like, what
Well,
the hell are you even saying? But it's got to be
he
important.
thinks he thinks he's telling you something.
He
So
really
just,
does, and he's not. It's
no,
not.
he
But
thinks.
yeah.
All
Well,
right.
thank you guys. Ooh, thank you guys. And we will see you next week for episode 2, season 3. And we'll see what happens with Lisa and all of the people. So see you
All
guys
right.
then.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.